So let's open it up. Questions, anything to add? Some things maybe I forgot, left out. Other areas of your life where being able to separate the wheat from chaff. Chaff is kind of worthless. The wheat is good. What's of value? What's a waste of time? What's good? What's not good? What's good in man's image or man's wisdom, but not so good in God's? All this, it's separating and seeing clearly the difference. So let's open it up. That's all I got. I see Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca.
Just thinking with what you were saying about obtaining wisdom. Whenever we obtain that wisdom, the other things that we obtain from having that wisdom, we are able to hold on to. Example, if you're the fool and you go after the silver and gold, you're not going to have the wisdom to use it wisely and hold on to it. Does that make sense?
That's a good point.
You know, it once you have the wisdom, you build on that wisdom and that experience, you gain more and you keep growing to the positive versus repeating foolish steps.
That's what we hope.
Yes.
That it's an upward slope, not up and back and up and back.
Correct.
But I think some of the early scriptures said God understands we may not be really good at distinguishing right on, and he has compassion and he'll work with us.
Yes.
But we want to be at least working in that direction. Now, I think the use of silver, and I stopped reading, I didn't want to use too much time. If I kept going in Proverbs, it would have talked about gold. It's saying wisdom is more important. That doesn't mean that if for your investment, your portfolio, that buying gold or silver, that's up to you. That might be a good choice. But that was used not to say not to buy that. But if you do buy it, you don't want to blow it. You want to have the wisdom to do something good with it.
Yes.
But that wisdom is more valuable. You can have that. You can have good income. All that's not a bad thing. But it was used in Proverbs to say, if you value silver and gold, maybe you ought to value wisdom, the ability to distinguish, which is wisdom. That is wisdom. That's one great definition of wisdom, is more valuable than your gold and silver, both in a balanced way. Thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
Hey, Gary. Morning.
Good morning. One of the things that you mentioned was having a desire to distinguish. I mean, I know I'm not where I could be, so I have a desire constantly to listen to Prophet, to listen to you, to look over what I'm doing and look at it from different directions, and I believe that desire is a huge part of it.
I think in that first scripture I wrote, where people are not mature, they're drinking milk. But God is not going to judge you in a bad way. He's got compassion. If you have the desire for truth to be able to distinguish, separate, even if you're not good at it, I think God gives you kind of a point. Like, okay, you're trying. Is he more likely to help you if you have desire? If you have desire in your heart to live the ways of God, to work towards that, to make better choices by distinguishing better, to be more in balance when you try to make decisions. If you have a sincere desire for that, are you more likely God or prophet will step in and guide you? Because it's really a prayer in your heart. Even if you don't speak it, it's great to speak it out loud. But if you have that desire in your heart, God takes it as a prayer, as we know, and you're more likely to get some help instead of him just standing back. God and prophet are more likely to draw nigh and help you when you're trying to determine who can you believe on the news or on the web internet talking just crazy. Is that truth, or is that somebody you're wasting your time listening to? So I think the desire is really important. And what I read in Proverbs, said, put it in your heart. I don't remember the exact words, but take the teachings of the father and mother and put it in your heart. That makes me think to have a desire in your heart to do better at distinguishing. So, yeah, I agree, Gary. And God knows if you have desire. If you pretend to want to distinguish well, but deep down you'd rather do evil and do bad things or hurt people, God also knows that. He knows what our desires, and that's a big variable. That's a really good point. Uh, Jorge?
And going along with that, having the desire to do to have that discernment and distinguishing, something you mentioned in one of your keys, which is we really have free will, and that's such a gift. And so having the desire to use that gift wisely, it shows a lot of things. Shows you care what God gave you. You're just trying to do well with something that God gave you, and how valuable that is. That seems to really increase your desire to do well with it.
That's why I ended on the card here. I kind of cut it short. God gives us a great deal of free will, not total, but a lot of free will. I ended with that because it's our free will to seek wisdom, which is a way distinguishing. I tie those two together, or not seek it. To seek to be more righteous, try to live God's ways. It's a never ending quest, but to work towards that, or seek to do more evil and harm people, to get ill gotten gains. Proverbs says you get ill gotten gains, but it may cost you a whole lot of things, freedom and even your longevity living. God notices all that. He notices you have desire to do right. And that goes a long ways, even if you're not real good at it, if you have desire to become more mature, like the quotes I use, to renew your mind, to get better at it, that goes a long ways in expressing where you want to use your free will. So that is an important topic. And some don't want to use their free will. So we've gone from you're born with, I think, an innate, most people, unless there's a real problem, right from wrong in general. And you kind of have a consciousness where if you do something to a little kid, you hurt them, most people that are normal would feel a little bad. That's the starting point. Parents can build on that, or they can diminish that, depending on the quality of your parents. Parents in the Zoom here would build on that. And then there's man-made laws, and we want to build on that. We want to be higher than man-made laws. That's how we want to exercise our free will and our desire to have a higher standard. That's a personal choice. And not everybody has to do that. That's a personal choice. I would think most on screen, you've already made that choice. Anybody else? Yeah. Lorraine?
Prophet, thank you for this discourse. There's something very strengthening and fortifying about this that comes in your discourse for me. And the Bible talks about there'll come a time where truth or seen as lies and lies are truth. Everything is just upside down. And it seems like that's the time we're living in now. And the good people out there that are guided by spirit, like you were talking about, and asking God to guide them, I think this could be very strengthening and fortifying for them to know they're seeing clearly and they're seeing the truth. And every other person out there, 50% maybe, might be of a different view, but that to have confidence in what they're seeing and how they're thinking and seeing the world is the truth. And I just see this as potentially very strengthening and fortifying for the good people out there to know they're the side of the fence they're on.
I think what you just said is why this topic was so dear to me. Once I got into it, I really liked it more than I thought I would. In the Bible, it talked about, and even Isaiah talked about a time when things would be upside down. There's so much stuff out there now that's untrue. You'd almost have to be comatose not to recognize some of this. That's so untrue that's being pushed by like mainstream media and a lot of folks out there pushing it as true. And there's a lot of truth out there that's being pushed as untruth. It really feels like exactly what was prophesied about in the Bible. Without getting too deep in that, I've talked in private to some of you about this in the winter warm-ups, what I think is going to happen. I think this reflects a possible time in history where things will be some changes. But there's so much just, from my view at least, when I distinguish total, I just want to say BS, untruth, that's being pushed hard. It's being really pushed and almost crammed down people's throat that are gullible as true. And there's so much truth out there that's being pushed hard to the same gullible people that the truth is untruth. And in Isaiah, I've been studying a bit, he said there'll be a time when things will be upside down. I don't believe, and he also said in that same area in Isaiah that it will be righted. It'll turn right side up. People will here, I think, get some help from the Heavenly Father to distinguish truth versus untruth. In other words, to be able to distinguish more accurately. I think this topic's really more important now with social media, all the TV programs. When I grew up, most TV programs, they might be a little biased, but generally it was about the news. They didn't seem to be spokesmen for a certain party. And now there's some that they're so polarized. They're like a propaganda machine. When I grew up, I learned about propaganda from the press in Russia. And I feel this is as bad, if not worse, back when I grew up about what happened in Russia. I don't know what's going on now in Russia. So I think that's a good point. Now more than maybe more than in our earlier years ago when we grew up, maybe more now, the ability to distinguish BS from truth, I think is more important now than maybe any other time in our lives. When I grew up, if a president on the side my parents weren't on got voted, a little disappointed, not a big deal. They tended to care about the country. They saw things a little different, but basically not too different. Now things are hugely different, like life and death for this country's direction. So back to the rain, I think we're in the times now that was prophesied where things are upside down. I don't want to talk about it today, but I believe God has a plan to turn this around. And all those people pushing lies, I believe that's the first wave that he's going to remove them and relocate them. People pushing drugs, going to relocate them to the astral. I've got this for the last 3 or 4 years. I've started sharing the last year, and I just found out Isaiah waves, the hauntee, the people out there that think they're smarter than everybody. He's going to remove them. I think maybe in our lifetime. But until that happens, we want to make better choices. And to make a good choice, you have to distinguish truth from untruth, accuracy from inaccuracy, right from wrong. So I think it's a very important topic today, not just in politics, but on the health advice. Look at our food pyramid. I learned in school, there's a pyramid for food. Y'all, do they still have that in school? Food pyramid? What we've learned through diligent judicial and study and making an effort over the years up at Guidance for Better Life. If you want to be healthy, turn that pyramid upside down. It's terrible. And just because the government puts it out doesn't mean it's right. It's actually upside down, completely opposite of good health if you do diligent research. Statins, I showed something that it's winter warm-ups. there's a study with how many thousand? 12,000 something? I think it was 12,109. Does anybody remember the number in that statin study worldwide? I think it was something like 12,000 people, something, that they did an overall mortality. How do people live the longest from all causes, all health issues, accidents, everything? And the people with 220 cholesterol to 240 outlived everybody. The people with the lower cholesterol died of all causes quicker. So if you're bragging about low cholesterol, nice knowing you. You're probably going to not be around as long as the rest of us. Yet what do doctors in this country prescribe? Who do they prescribe statins to? People 220, 240, they're prescribing to healthy people. You need to really look into that and study if a doctor says take statins, if it's right for you. I think someday that's going to be as stupid as leeching people to death way back in the 1800s, or that the world was flat. But start thinking critically. Why are statins pushed? I think statins have not made billions for the companies. I think it's over $1 trillion statins have produced for pharmaceuticals. That's a lot of money to give up. And if you can push statins, even if it's not right for you, there's a lot of money at stake. And if you start thinking, is there money involved? Is there an axe to grind? Is somebody talking head on TV really in certain politicians' pocket? Start thinking, what motivates people to say things? And if they have a certain axe to grind, you might be more suspicious of what they tell you. Get some other opinions. We've got all kinds of examples. There's all kinds of data out there where people all of a sudden can't hardly walk in a wheelchair because of statins. They stopped statins. That was Bear's dad. And there's reasons. There's actually technical reasons for that. They get off statins, they can start walking again. There's a study out now that people that have severe memory issues as they get older, there's some correlation with taking statins. So it's in your finances. And finances now, this is insane. A lot of financial planners study on your own a little bit. You care about your money more than a planner. You get a certain amount of money, and the standard thing planners use, you save $1 million. You don't need that to retire. And then you take out 40,000 a year and you spend it. And pretty soon you're out of money. To me, that's a poor decision. On $1 million, it's easy. It's so easy to make $40 or $50 or $60,000 a year safely in dividends. Money market now, you can almost get 5%. Why would you take money out and take that advice from somebody if you did some diligent study? I've helped several Blue Beaters with this, that we're going to do that, where you can make 4, 5, 6% on that money and keep your principal, give it on to your kids. Or if you can't make quite enough to live on, it won't deplete as quickly. There's so much misinformation. This climate hoax, it's a scam. There's always climate change. There was climate warming periods before oil was ever discovered, before combustible engines. It's based on sunspots, ocean currents, a whole lot of things that have nothing to do with mankind. Start thinking in common sense. Just think. Use your brains that God gave us. We've got people telling us we can control the weather. The same people couldn't control a virus, COVID, but they can control weather? Like, just a little common sense goes a long ways. Weather's always changing. Nobody talks about if it's a little warmer, some areas of the world that we can't grow food, maybe we can start growing food. There's always a plus and a minus. So I guess be a little skeptical of listening to anybody in a position of authority. Except Prophet, listen to him all the time, I'm sure. No, I even told you to double check and, be a little skeptical. By now, though, you should have some trust. But a lot of these people you hear on TV or websites, they're putting out bad information. But I've been looking a bit on our website. When I look on YouTube for our stuff, our 180 videos, whatever, there's a lot of stuff comes up. Once in a while, I'll look into them. There's a lot of stuff that's people putting out truth. There's a lot of doctors now putting out more truth about statins, or putting out the pyramid you get in school, how to eat, is upside down. But you've got to distinguish which ones can you trust, which ones are giving you information that could help you make decisions in all areas of your life, and which ones are taking you down a dead end. And it's ultimately our responsibility. So, with all this internet stuff, there's so much bad information, but there's also a lot of good stuff out there. And if you keep following the bad information, you're going to make bad choices. Eat poorly, spend your money wrong, or take bad advice from your doctors. And it takes diligent, judicial effort and study, time and effort in finance, in health, in all kinds of areas. What is the best course of action? But according to Proverbs, it's more valuable than gold and silver. Do whatever it takes to get wisdom. That kind of sums us up. And I guess you do with it whatever you're going to do with it. Anybody have anything else? Yeah, the gentleman from Colombia. I
Hello, can you hear me?
hear you good.
Okay. I'll speak in English.
Thank you.
So I can attest to God's ways being compatible with having an abundant life. And
Yes.
you talked about that, and that they don't, they're not against each other. They work perfectly together. And that's something that I didn't have the wisdom to know a few decades ago, in my past, in my journey. I made poor lifestyle choices as far as just who I hung out with and the kind of places I went, and maybe some of the things that I consumed, a few decades ago. But by the grace of God and with my relationship with Prophet and personal effort, I have a whole different view now, and I'm not even drawn to those things anymore. And so it just really made me think of that, and how you talked about like knowing what an abundant life really is, and I didn't know what that was before. I just got a card, or not just got a card, but I got a card recently from somebody who said they were glad that I didn't succumb to the good life. And that made me think about what the good life means to people, because the good life in man's view versus the good life in God's view. And a lot of man's view of the good life might mean partying or whatever, or just poorer choices. But like, I see the good life as living God's ways. And that's been just like it's a blessing to be able to see things that way. So I kind of just made me think of man's views versus God views, as well as how God's ways are compatible with the abundant life.
Thank you for that. Thanks for speaking in English. You just kind of went back and talked about what I read about you started drinking milk, you were immature. But God didn't judge you, He helped you get to the point. You see the good life, you define that totally different now, genuinely deep in, than you did many years ago, living the Miami party life or whatever. Totally different. You actually had to move from Miami because it had such a strong pull. But then you got your job, you got to see your dad, and now you're in a place where you're a professor. That move, based on faith and not having anything to move to when you moved to New York, that changed your life. I believe you would say for the better.
Absolutely.
So that's that where you were immature. I think a lot of us were immature when we started, me included. We drank milk, a spiritual thing. But God didn't judge. If in our heart we wanted to do better, and God had a plan for us, he helps us become more mature. And part of maturity and renewing our minds, which I also read, is this is really perfect. The good life, in quotes, drugs, famous, partying, whatever, or just on money or how popular or whatever, that might seem alluring and attractive at one stage of our immaturity. Over time, if we draw nigh to God, he will, and it's in our heart, and he's got a plan for us, you see the good life totally different. I think Lawrence is stating a good example how I think we've all matured. I know I've matured. A lot of the things I might have done in my 20s or drawn to, I'm not even interested in now. I didn't have to give up. I just not interested. It's just not something I want. So if you're at an immature stage and you're drawn to the good life that people would think, rich, famous, powerful, whatever, that's not necessarily evil, but over time, God will help you redefine that if you want. If you don't want, that's okay too. And I think your life is much, do you have more joy, peace, genuine happiness, clarity about what's important to you? All those things we consider abundance, more love in your life, a deeper love, more lasting love. Are all those things now you consider abundance and the good life?
Yeah, absolutely. And then some.
But you showed growth. And God knows we don't always know what he thinks the good life is originally. That very first thing I read about drinking milk, we're immature. But he says he won't fault find and he'll help you. And he helped all of us, including me, get to where we define an abundant life or good life, kind of interchangeable, way different than we might have when we were younger. So it's okay to be immature and want what other people think they want to bring happiness. You know, a lot of people that are rich and famous jump out windows and destroy their lives because deep down they don't have the peace and the love that we have. They couldn't find it in the bottle or in drugs or in fame or more money. We found it in the ways of God, but they didn't know. And if they didn't have a desire in their heart, a lot of them in their lives or end up destroying themselves. It says in Proverbs, lose your life because you're not happy. They can't scratch an itch with man-made things. All those things seem more money, more fame, more popularity, more stuff. That can be very alluring early on. It was to me early on. And that was my focus. And then when it all went away, I realized the real stability is in a relationship with the divine. So I was immature like all of us. I wanted my own jet airplane and business and all this type of stuff. And it all went away when God had a better plan for me. And I'm so grateful. I don't even want that lifestyle anymore. That's really a beautiful way to kind of summarize this, Lawrence. We were all mature, immature, and through God's help, by accepting his help, being receptive, I think our goals in life, you still can have good income and wealth, except gold and silver, but that's not our treasure. We can have those things because you got to retire and pay bills and stuff. But Jesus talked about where your heart is your treasure. If you have investments and portfolio and gold and silver, but your heart's with God and his ways, I wouldn't define them as your treasure. It's just you need some income to live down here. You can have stuff. It's okay, a house. We don't have to walk around poor. We can find a balance. But I think your heart is now with God and prophet and a soul, your higher self and his ways. So you could have a portfolio, but that's not his treasure anymore. I think that's a deeper understanding of what Jesus was teaching. We don't want to give that up and lose it by somebody that doesn't handle it well. Learn to handle your own finances. Do some studying because you care more about it than anybody else. I've heard 2 or 3 horror stories in the last couple months related to blue beaters where portfolios have dropped dramatically and people have to take it in their own hands, but they don't know anything about finances. Well, they're not good discerners. They don't know how to distinguish between investments. What's safe? What's risky? They never made an effort. Remember, to be able to distinguish takes effort, work, time. It's not easy, but it's, according to Proverbs, it's worth it. Do whatever you have to do to get wisdom. Give up anything if you have to get wisdom. So you can have some treasures and be retired comfortably, which is I think a prudent thing. I think God would think that's great. So you're not having handout to somebody else. You stand on your own, you invest properly, you can have gold, silver, stocks, whatever, real estate. But if it's not in your heart, if God's more fully in your heart and his ways is what's in your heart, then it's not your treasure. So I don't think it violates Matthew 6, where Jesus talks about heavenly treasures. In your heart, you can have heavenly treasures, your focus, your priority. You can have some physical stuff's fine. In other words, it doesn't own you. If your finances own you, that's not so good. But if you're God's and you want to belong to God's, you're his, and you just happen to have some financial security, that's fine. That's, I think, a beautiful balance. So beautiful. What we defined as a good life, what people think is wise when we're young, we see that as those two types of wisdom. Human wisdom, which we thought was pretty cool early on. I think most of us now see a higher form of wisdom that's pure, that comes from the heaven. Anything else? Any of you that
Thank you.
watch news or channel surf or different channels, how many of you noticed if you get snippets, even if you don't watch, certain far left channels seem to be extremely wound up emotionally? How many noticed that? Are they generally less reliable when people are overly emotional? I found that in my life. There may be some truth, but you want to be very cautious and filter out if they occasionally give something to think about and consider view, which is good, maybe consider, but the overly emotional, generally not very reliable. College professor that's saying this country's horrible, we're the worst on earth, communism's great, yet everybody's trying to get out of communist countries coming here. He has no credibility. If you want to get a decent grade, maybe just smile, but you don't want to believe that. That's complete garbage. So, influencers on YouTube and stuff, be careful, be very careful how you use your time. If you list a lot of people that put out garbage, it's going to be hard to get it out of your consciousness. It's in there. You might say, no, it's in there. You want to feed your brain, renew your mind with, be prudent on what you allow, what you watch, what you listen to. It's your choice, your free will, but you want to make a good choice and distinguish what is going to help you grow and renew your mind and what's going to take you in the backwards. I think that's all I've got. Anybody else have anything? Roland, you had a question. Did we answer it today for you? Let me find Roland's question. Can I read it, Roland? Maybe this will generate something. Then we're about done.
Yes, that would be great.
Dear Prophet, sometimes I'm not sure whether a thought I have about another person is a negative or judgmental thought or is an accurate thought about how the person really is, as I see something about a person I had not previously seen. I'd be interested to know how best to distinguish between judgmental thoughts and the ones which are simply realistic and accurate assessment about a person. Today I think answered the question. Are you angry? Do you have trying to get something from them? If you're out of balance and you're not pure and balanced and humble and rational, then you're probably not, or if you're angry or full of fear, whatever. So if you're in balance, you're personal available, and you're nourished, you know when you're not nourished well, you made some poor choices, which is poor distinction about job and some other financial issues. Not catastrophic, but not very helpful to you. That's James 3:13. That last part there is about how are you? Are you fair-minded? Are you seeing clearly? Are you in balance? That helps. But we're really not here to judge other people. That's not really the point today. We're not the ones that should judge other people. But you might use discernment or this distinction. Are what they telling you is accurate for you? It's more about judging what's good for us. We're not trying to go out and judge other people. But you might also distinguish that hanging around that person a lot, we're not judging them, but hanging around them is a bummer to you. It keeps pulling you down. It keeps getting you in a off. That it's just they're not a good influence on you. So if you judge somebody that they're not a good influence and you decide to spend less time with them, that's okay. That's about you. So their question is really good because we're not trying to judge other people. Let God judge other people. That's not our job. But we do have the right and the free will to judge if what they're telling us is BS or it's something that would help us. And if they're pushing something on us or they're trying to generally give us some help, or if they're good to hang out with, they lift us up, or if it just, you shouldn't hang out with them. So we're judging what's right for us. And this is really important. When I got your question, I was really happy for it. So if you're judging something about them and it doesn't affect you, good luck, but that's not our place in life. So this is really important. We're judging, are they telling us truth? Are they trying to push us in a direction because they have an agenda? Do they uplift us when we're around them? We can judge or discern that we better not spending much time with them. Or we might spend time with them, but not go to the bar with them every night. Or go out and do whatever they do at night, but maybe at work it's okay to hang with them. So we're really judging what's right for us, not about them. The Bible talks about that. We're really not here to judge other people. And I think that's what you're talking about. But if you're judging, are they good to hang out with, or do they bring you down somehow? That's okay. You have a right to do that. A right to protect yourself, free will to what do you want to be influence you? Do you like being influenced by them, or is it something wrong? So this type of judgment is what works for you. It's not really judging them. That's not so much our place. Although you probably, if you're balanced and you're nourished, well nourished spiritually, get your daily bread, and you don't have any reason to dislike them, you're kind of neutral, you're fair, a judicial judge, a diligent judge. A judge should be fair. Unlike some of the things we've seen on TV the last few months, totally biased judges. What is going on here? Then you can judge if you want to hang out with them. That's different than I think you were talking about. I think you were judging them, and I would caution you on that. But if you judge certain things about them that impact you, and you use your free will to make a decision to not listen, to not respond, or to not be around them as much, or to be around them, you have a right to do that. In fact, you have a responsibility to do that. You have a responsibility. Like the right to self-defense, I've taught for years, is beyond that. You have a responsibility to defend you and your loved ones. A God-given right. Not just a right, but a responsibility. If somebody threatens somebody I love, I believe God gives me a right and a responsibility to do the best I can to defend them. That's beyond the Second Amendment. So you have a responsibility to do what's right for you, Roland. I think if you're just judging them, an armchair, you're sitting back and trying to psychoanalyze somebody, unless you're voting for them, maybe, which affects the country, judging them, I'm not sure that's where you want to spend your time. Do you see the difference in that? We're not here to judge somebody's going to hell or going to heaven. Let God and prophet, let the divine take care of that. But you have an absolute right and a responsibility to judge what comes into your mind. Is it renewing your mind, or is it making you less mature? Is it taking your energy down, leading you in the wrong direction or a good direction? Teaching you untruth that this country is the worst in the world. If this country's gone, man, this world will become unglued. We make a lot of stupid choices in our country, but we keep the world somewhat, a little bit in balance. Don't listen to stupid stuff from college professors. Anything else on this? I think Roland's question and the man from Costa Rica or Colombia is a really good way to tie this up. What we see as good and abundant is different maybe than before. We're not so mature. God's helped us get to a more mature view. And what you said, Lawrence, this good life goes beautifully, fits perfectly with the ways of God. And I didn't understand that years ago, and I know you didn't. And your story you're writing for the Golden Bridge explains that pretty well. And then what Roland says, judging others just to be an armchair judge and criticizing people, I think you want to reduce that. But judging how they impact you, you should do that. Let God judge the other stuff. Is that making sense, Roland?
Yeah, very much so. Thank you.
And if you're not sure, how do you figure out other stuff you're not sure about? I think you contemplate, ask prophet or Heavenly Father, read some scripture, get some guidance. The same tools you'd use anything else. Okay. I hope this was worth your time. Nowadays, with all this stuff on, I see a lot of thumbs up. Thank you for that. Nowadays, with the politics stirring up and so much one side of the press out there that's considered mainstream, I think they're out of touch with most Americans now. But so many people believe that stuff, and it impacts us all how they vote and how they think. There's Congress people and women, a couple in particular, spewing stuff that I know is totally against the Constitution. They don't understand the Supreme Court. It's just, and people listen to them because they're in Congress. We have Congress people lying out their teeth. When Congress people speak and they lie, that's appalling. When many of them don't seem to understand the Constitution, which they raise a hand like I did in the Navy as an officer, swore to uphold against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I'm far more concerned about domestic. Domestic is our threat, folks. Be very careful. I think that's all I've got. Enough preaching today. Anybody else? Okay. Good to see you all. Can't see Dell. He's on his iPhone. His computer died. Got to find a new one. So I guess eventually they conk out. You got 14 years out of it. That's pretty good. Most apples don't last but a week or two, and they rot. His apple lasted 14 years. I think that's a miracle. Oh, maybe different apples. Okay, I'm getting goofy. So may the blessing be. Remember, God loves you dearly. Even when you make mistakes, he's there for you. You can do horrible things, but if you turn and you desire his help and draw close to him, he'll put out his hand most of the time. So, all right. I love you. Jesus loves you and God loves you. May the blessing be. Thank you. Bye.